This is TWiT.
I'm just curious, if you were in charge of comm at a tech company today, pick your tech company, Nirit, is there any way out for them? What would you do? Is there a new kind of honesty and transparency? Will they never be believed and trusted?
So I won't be in that position, I think. It's one of the most difficult jobs in the world right now. But yeah, so as you remember from the book, what I found is they usually put out the same playbook, what I call the tech PR template for crisis. They always do the same responses. And one of the book's messages, I think, is that it's, of course, not enough, because I documented that it's backlashed heavily. So how should they react is a brilliant question. I think one of the best quotes in the books are yours, actually, touching that we look at tech as black boxes producing black boxes. So yes, transparency, and they need to educate more about the complexity of the nuances and issues they're dealing with, and showing the humanity inside and things of that nature. But also, I think at that time when we see all the wars between them, it's also they need to be more united, because like there are problems that are dealing with, it's the whole sector that is dealing with. And if they won't deal with them together, it's going to be more damage.
Are there
so
any examples you can remember, call to mind of crisis response done well by a tech company? I'm trying to think myself. I can't think of any.
So the thing is that there's a no-win here, because they are doing what the Crisis Communication 101 tells them to do. They're specifying what they've done, the good intentions, they've built something good, and they have previous good deeds, which they always specify, and great policies in place. But our product or platform was manipulated and misused by bad, malicious actors. So we always have this victim-villain framing of we were good, and versus the outside malicious entities. Then the other thing is that they always do those apology tours, which I called pseudo-apologies. Because, they say we apologize.
Like what Andrew Cuomo is doing right now.
Regret.
Is he apologizing or just denying?
I tweeted today that if your apology begins with an if clause, maybe you should shut your mouth.
If I did that, I don't remember doing that. If you were hurt by that,
if you were offended by
if in any way, that was that's not the way.
Ridiculous.
The big opportunity for companies these days is data breaches. Almost every company has to announce, oh, gee, I'm sorry, your customer records have been given up to hackers. I mean, clearly Equifax is the exact wrong way to handle that. I'm trying to think of, because actually maybe not. Equifax's way of handling it was making more money by offering.
They grew.
So wrong depends on who you're talking to. If you're a stakeholder, you're pretty happy about it. Yeah. I can't think of.
Look at the reputation on the other hand.
Yeah, that's true. It hurts the reputation, doesn't it?
But you look at, and I don't want to get ahead of us, but the Google story today.
Well, actually, it's funny. I was gonna actually go into that, because that's a perfect example.
I think it fits right in with this. Yeah.
So Google announced, and it's in the Wall Street Journal of all places. I don't know. Is that Wall Street Journal crowing a little bit because Google's going to have to stop selling ads based on your specific web browsing? Paul Thurrott was skeptical earlier on Windows Weekly. Apparently, Google and this is it's one of those things. Yeah, I'm going to give up smoking next year. Google, it's March. Plans next year. It's March. That you could do it this year.
No, it's more like
next year.
I have the cure for cancer and you don't.
Yeah.
So
Wednesday,
I could give it up, but you can't.
Google said it plans to stop next year using or investing in. We're going to continue through 2021, but next year we'll stop investing in tracking technologies that uniquely identify web users as they move from site to site across the internet. I mean, clearly this is one of the many things Google and many, many others do with tracking cookies. And in fact, I highly recommend Steve Gibson's show yesterday. He called it DNS collusion. It turns out that of the top 1,000 websites, 10% of them are using a DNS trick in the CNAME field to follow you around, not using, I mean, it's really appalling what they're doing. It's very sneaky. it's pretty technical, so I'll let Steve explain it in security now. But the point, I guess, is Google may say, well, we've decided not to use tracking cookies, but I've always thought Google probably has other means of doing the same thing.
Well, Google has,
Of course,
Google
they still
has
have a bottom
first-party
line
data.
to meet.
Yeah, right. Google's 52%.
Well, but they also have the tool to get there. They have the first party data, and they don't need
third-party
to know
data. Yeah,
Right.
Third-party data because they know where you as a user have gone. Point one. Point two. Evidently, they're going to have your local browser is going to kind of type you, so you're in more control of that, which I've actually argued for years. When I try to get Google to share kind of types with publishers. But now Google's going to say we can do that kind of on our own. So it's a perfect example of regulatory capture where everybody screamed, cookies are evil, third-party duty is evil, we're going to get you, Google, we're going to demonize all that stuff. And Google said, oh, okay, no cookies. And then the publishers say, but we don't have any first-party data. That's not fair.
Google has already responded. What I was just talking about, reading on in the article, the company last year said they would stop using third-party cookies in 2022. But now the company's saying neither will it build alternative tracking technologies or use those.
Which is what they were going to do.
Right. Or use those being developed by other entities, like I would imagine the CNAME inclusion, which is offered by Adobe, Oracle, and Salesforce, among others, to replace third-party cookies for its own ad buying tools. Google says its ad buying tools will use new technologies it has been developing with others in what it calls a privacy sandbox.
They've been working with publishers on this.
This is regulatory capture right here.
The last 6 or 8 months.
To target ads without collecting information about individuals from multiple websites. As an example, one such technology analyzes users' browsing habits on their own devices. And in other words, so it's doing on-device analysis.
It's doing it locally.
And then allows advertisers to target aggregated groups of users with similar interests. They call them cohorts rather than individual users.
Here's a jock. Here's a nerd.
This is what Facebook does. Facebook never says, here's what Leo Laporte wants to know. They say, here are 1,000 people like Leo Laporte that you could target because they all have the same interest. So there's the story. Now we're going to ask Nirit. There's the story. You can see already where the tech journalists are going, well, sure, Google. Right. Or it's regulatory capture. Google's pulling up the ladder because it's already won. How could Google have handled this better, and how should we handle this?
Well, I think it's similar to all ban political advertising at all.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Yes.
So it always goes back to we ask them to do one thing, and that just like Jeff said. But I think a step back, the whole TechWiT thing started because micro-targeting became this evil force of, the source of evil in the world, right? And it was because of things like the Russian interference. So back then, everybody looked at micro-targeting as the worst thing on the internet. But now we have Facebook changing the conversations, showing, okay, if we don't have targeted things, how small businesses are going to reach their audience. So you see also Facebook going out with other messages, trying at least to change the framing of it's not that evil. It's actually very helpful, specifically in the pandemic where small companies are hurt. And so that's a thing that I think they're doing well, actually, now.
Of course, Apple precipitated all this by changing its ID for advertisers and using its ATT technology. And that's the one that Facebook's really saying, oh, it's not just us you heard, Apple. It's all the small businesses in all the world. Google put its finger to the wind and said, well, but I have to say I remain skeptical. Google, by the way, says its announcement does not cover its ad tools and unique identifiers for mobile apps, just for websites. Wall Street Journal has decided to take this as a good sign. This is the quote, but its plan is the latest sign that the tide might be turning on user tracking more broadly. And I might say it's just going underground. And we use that term regulatory capture, but that's essentially saying the big incumbents who are already making billions of dollars can handle this kind of thing.
They're fine. They can handle
They're
it.
fine, and
But
everybody
the other part
else.
of this, Leo, so we've been talking too about the devices. The more that happens locally on your device, all the intelligence is now going into your phone.
Yeah.
It can analyze. It can do a lot of ad targeting logic locally, and to just say, "Oh, that's the choice for ads. Give them this one."
Yeah.
Right.